Hi, today we've got a video update for you on the differences between a WRX MY15 onwards model and the current BRZ or Toyota 86 GTS. And we're going to show you quickly some comparisons between the brakes and the suspension. So if you're considering these two cars to buy yourself, or you just generally want to know what the difference is between the two different cars, it's a really handy way to understand what to expect. So to the left of my cameraman, we've got our MY15 WRX R&D vehicle, which has now got upgraded STI brakes with the MCA coilovers. And to your right, we've got our BRZ, which is now over 3 years old, done a lot of R&D. It's got our big Alcon brake upgrade kit compared to factory standard, of course, with the MCA reds in this as well. So let's just have a look at what the differences are between the two cars and where Subaru have come from and where they're going to get a bit of an idea. And of course we know this particular car came out well and truly before the WRX, but it would be common sense to assume that when this car was in production, or the beginnings of its production, Subaru had a pretty good idea of where they were going with this particular WRX, even though it's now 3 years later. So when we got our BRZ factory standard, the BRZ comes with ventilated front brakes, discs, and calipers similar to the early model WRX, and on the rear ventilated discs and calipers on the back. So of course we've gone to the big upgrade kit, which I won't go into details now, but we've upgraded it more recently with the MCA red coilovers, which are a fantastic coilover spring and shock package made here in Australia by Josh Coote, with his father, who's really well known for motor racing and rally shock absorbers here in Queensland. And the difference from a suspension layout point of view, you'll notice the BRZ suspension's got a forward mounted front lower control arm with the steel pressing that pivots off the inner K-frame, whereas the WRX, whilst it's fresh in your mind, has an aluminium front control arm which rear pivots off a mount off the back of the body. And of course you've got the exhaust system here for the lower front model mounted turbocharger. Now of course the coilover that we've had in this car now for 12 months is of course the MCA red coilovers as well, which is a combination of a fully adjustable shock absorber and a brand new strut top with spring. Has all the adjustments and features. You can see that on some of our videos as a separate upgrade. But what we wanted to talk about is just so you get a bit of a fresh idea of what the differences are between the two cars. So and of course they both got McPherson strut front suspension, meaning the strut forms part of the guiding function for the suspension to work, as opposed to just a separate strut and a separate spring. So let's go around the back and we'll have a look at the rear of the BRZ. Now really interestingly, the BRZ comes out with a ventilated rear disc, and of course this is our upgraded kit. Ventilated rear disc and a sliding caliper with a coilover shock absorber. Now you got to remember, on the rear of this car, the shock absorber and the spring don't form any guiding function, because if you take that out, the suspension alignment will still remain the same with the upper rear arm and the lower rear arms. So the MCA reds in the back don't control camber or caster, they're purely a shock absorber and a spring. And of course when you look around underneath the back, you'll see this car's had a whole heap of R&D done by the guys at Whiteline. It was their R&D car for 3 years, so there's some stuff on here that is still probably not even on sale yet, and some parts never went on sale. It's got the lower control arm, the rear sway bar. We spoke about the shock absorber and the spring, the front toe control, the lower link, and the upper wishbone, which is the part right up the top, the cast steel part, which controls negative camber. And of course it all pivots off a rear mounted diff mount, which the diff hangs in behind here, and a front K-frame up the top, which forms the part of the support of the front of the suspension. And we'll show you some still photos of this. So again, whilst it's fresh in your mind, let's have a look at the WRX. Interestingly, you got to remember this is an STI brake upgrade, which I'll talk about in a separate video. But the WRX comes factory standard with a solid rear disc and a sliding caliper. Completely different to the rear end brakes of a BRZ. However, the rear suspension is a very, very similar layout. You'll notice again we've got the MCA shock absorbers on the rear with the spring and just the shock itself. Again, doesn't form any guiding function. The lower arm, as you can see on our Rex, as opposed to the R&D vehicle, hasn't been replaced yet with an aluminium arm, but very, very similar design. It's got the front longitudinal link. It's got the, right up the top there, the upper wishbone, which on a WRX now is a pressed steel wishbone, as opposed to what was on the early model STIs and the BRZ, a cast iron rear upper wishbone which controls negative camber. And of course you'll notice the diff and everything else is similar layout and the similar mounting method to the BRZ. So some parts on a Rex of an MY15 are similar and will fit similar to what's on a BRZ. So that's about it that I want to go into detail here to explain to you the differences between the two models. Stay tuned for some of our other video updates from here in Australia. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and no matter where you are in the world, we really hope this information has helped you. Bye for now.